I still remember that day like it was yesterday, even though it's been 7 years. 7 years since I walked into our bedroom, James and mine, and found her lingerie tucked between our sheets. Not just any lingerie, expensive stuff. The kind James could never afford to buy me on his accounting salary. The kind I'd never wear anyway. God, I was so naive. Looking back, all the signs were there. The late nights at work, the sudden business trips, the way his phone would mysteriously go silent whenever I entered the room. But you know what they say about love. It blinds you. And I was completely, utterly blind. My name is Carrie Donovan. I was Carrie Mitchell back then, married to James Mitchell for 8 years when my world imploded. We met in college. The typical story. He was handsome, charming, played guitar at parties. I was the serious one, always studying. But somehow he noticed me. We married right after graduation, bought a small house in the suburbs of Boston, and started planning our future. Kids, career advancement, the whole American dream package. "Babe, I'm heading out. Dinner with the Thompson account," he'd said that night, kissing me on the forehead. "Don't wait up." I remember nodding, smiling even. I trusted him completely. That's what makes me cringe now. How I smiled as he walked out the door to meet her. I only found the lingerie because I was changing our bed sheets. Spring cleaning, if you can believe it. I was literally freshening up our marriage bed while he was... God, I still can't say it without feeling sick. I sat there, holding this wisp of black lace in my trembling hands, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The unexplained credit card charges, the faint smell of unfamiliar perfume, his sudden interest in getting in shape, the way he'd become so critical of me, my appearance, my cooking, the way I folded his damn shirts. I called my sister Leah. She came over immediately. "Maybe there's an explanation," she said, but her eyes told me she didn't believe it either. I confronted him when he came home at midnight. His face, I'll never forget it. Not shock or denial, just resignation, like he was almost relieved it was finally out. "Who is she?" I demanded. He looked at the floor, then finally at me. "Her name is Vanessa. Vanessa Clark. She's a client." "How long?" 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Hundreds of moments when he could have told me the truth but chose not to. "Do you love her?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. His silence was my answer. I threw him out that night, packed his bags myself, tossed them onto our front lawn. The neighbors watched. I didn't care. My hands moved mechanically, gathering his belongings while he kept apologizing, saying it wasn't what he'd planned, as if that somehow made it better. "Is she younger?" I asked as he loaded his car. He hesitated. "Yes." "Pretty?" "Carrie, don't answer me." "Yes," he said quietly. "But that's not why." I slammed the door in his face. The divorce was ugly. James and Vanessa moved in together before our divorce was even finalized. They didn't even try to hide it. Facebook photos of them in Hawaii, at restaurants, building their new life on the ashes of mine. I learned later that Vanessa wasn't just any client. She was the daughter of the owner of a major investment firm. Her father had made James a partner in his new startup. The whole thing felt like a calculated move, trading up for a younger model with better connections. I spiraled, of course. Who wouldn't? I lost 20 pounds in a month because I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Friends stopped calling because I was bringing down the vibe. My performance at work slipped. I was teaching high school English then, trying to explain The Great Gatsby to teenagers while my own life was falling apart, felt like some cosmic joke. The worst part wasn't losing James. It was losing myself. The confident woman I'd been disappeared overnight. In her place was someone I didn't recognize, someone who studied her reflection looking for flaws, who wondered what she'd done wrong, who felt fundamentally unlovable. Vanessa Clark. I Googled her obsessively. Harvard Business School graduate, former model, daddy's company, perfect teeth, perfect hair. I hated how beautiful she was. I hated that I cared. They married 13 months after James left me. I found out through a mutual friend who thought I should know. They had a destination wedding in Santorini. The photos leaked onto my social media feed somehow. Algorithm torture. Her dress probably cost more than my car. I'd like to say I rose above it all immediately, that I found my strength and moved on with dignity, but that would be a lie. The truth is messier. I drank too much, dated terrible men, called James when I was lonely, then hated myself afterward, hit rock bottom more than once. But then something strange happened. In trying to destroy me, they set me free. The day I finally stopped crying over James was the day I realized something fundamental. Our marriage had been dying long before Vanessa came along. I just hadn't wanted to see it. James and I had been going through the motions for years. The passion had cooled. The conversations had become transactional. Did you pay the electric bill? Your mother called. We need milk. We were roommates, not lovers, not partners. I'd been so focused on the future, the kids we planned to have, the career goals we'd set, that I'd missed the emptiness of our present. That realization didn't excuse his betrayal. Nothing could. But it helped me understand that what I was mourning wasn't just James. It was the death of the future I'd planned, the life I thought I'd have. It took me almost 2 years to truly start rebuilding. I moved to a smaller apartment across town, changed schools, started teaching at Westlake Academy instead. I needed somewhere James and I had no history together. I joined a support group for divorced women. Sounds cliché, but it helped to hear other stories, to know I wasn't alone. He left me for his dental hygienist, one woman shared, laughing through tears. I can't even get my teeth cleaned without having flashbacks. We laughed. Dark humor became my lifeline. I remember the exact moment when I realized I was going to be okay. I was grading papers at a coffee shop, something I'd never have done when I was married because James always wanted me home promptly. And I looked up to see a couple arguing at a nearby table. The woman was crying silently while the man checked his phone, clearly disengaged. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. That wasn't my life anymore. I was free. I started dating again, cautiously. Had my heart broken once or twice, but differently this time. Clean breaks that hurt, but healed properly. I went back to school for my master's degree. Started teaching advanced placement classes. Found my voice again. Meanwhile, I heard snippets about James and Vanessa through the grapevine. They'd bought a mansion in Brookline. James was now CFO at her father's company. They traveled constantly. Paris, Tokyo, Milan. The perfect power couple. Then, 3 years after they married, rumors started circulating. James had been passed over for CEO, a position he'd been promised. Vanessa's father had given it to his nephew instead. There were whispers about financial troubles, arguments at company parties. I pretended not to care, but I soaked up every detail. My friend Melissa, who still ran in their social circles, was my primary source of intel. "They're putting on a good show," she told me over brunch one Sunday. "But things aren't as perfect as they seem." "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to sound merely curious rather than hungry for details. "Well," she leaned in, lowering her voice, "James has been drinking too much at events, and Vanessa's been showing up places alone. Plus, there's talk about the company stock tanking. Her father's investment firm is under investigation for some questionable practices." I nodded, embarrassed by how good this information made me feel. I shouldn't have cared, but I did. "The funniest part," Melissa added, sipping her mimosa, "is that she seems to think you orchestrated it all." "What? Me?" I nearly choked on my avocado toast. "Apparently James told her that you predicted their downfall. Said something about you warning him that what goes around comes around. She's convinced you put some kind of curse on them." I burst out laughing. The irony was too perfect. I had said something like that during our last explosive argument, but it had been an empty threat thrown in anger. I certainly hadn't orchestrated anything. Life had done that all on its own. But something about that conversation stuck with me. The idea that Vanessa feared me even a little bit was oddly empowering. For years, I'd pictured her as this untouchable goddess who had everything I lacked. But perhaps she was just as insecure as anyone else. Then came the day that changed everything again. I was at my doctor's appointment when I overheard a familiar name. "Mrs. Vanessa Mitchell?" the receptionist called out. I froze, ducking behind a magazine. It couldn't be. But when I peered over the glossy pages of People, there she was, Vanessa Clark Mitchell, in the flesh, looking slightly less polished than in her Instagram photos but still beautiful. She didn't see me. I watched as she was led back to an examination room, my heart pounding. Same doctor, same medical building. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. I considered leaving, rescheduling, but something kept me glued to my seat. Curiosity, perhaps, or the strange sense that this moment was somehow significant. When my name was called, I walked on shaky legs to my appointment. Dr. Levine, my gynecologist for the past decade, greeted me warmly. "Carrie, how are you? It's been a while." I smiled tightly. "I'm good. Busy with work, you know how it is." The appointment proceeded normally until the end when Dr. Levine was making notes in my chart. "Oh, I just saw another patient who mentioned knowing you," she said casually. "Vanessa Mitchell? She said you used to be friends." Friends. The audacity of that lie made me laugh out loud, startling Dr. Levine. "Sorry," I said. "We weren't exactly friends. She's married to my ex-husband." Dr. Levine's face fell. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize." "It's fine," I assured her. Ancient history. But as I was gathering my things to leave, Dr. Levine hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Carrie, I know this is inappropriate, and I wouldn't normally say anything, but given your history, I feel like you should know." My stomach tightened. "Know what?" She sighed. "Vanessa has been trying to conceive for over a year now. She's been having fertility issues. I shouldn't be telling you this, but, well, I remember how much you wanted children with James." I felt like I'd been punched. James and I had planned to start trying for a baby right around the time he left me. Children had been a major part of our future plans that had died with our marriage. "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly, not sure how to process this information. As I walked to my car, a strange mix of emotions swirled within me. Sadness for the children I might never have. Vindication that the perfect couple was struggling. Guilt about feeling vindicated. And underneath it all, a dawning realization that would change everything. I knew something about Vanessa that I could use. I wish I could tell you that I took the high road, that I felt sympathy for Vanessa's fertility struggles and moved on with my life. But the truth is messier than that. Something shifted in me that day. For years, I'd been the victim in this story, the one who'd been wronged, abandoned, replaced. But suddenly, I had power. Information is power, as they say. I didn't immediately know what I would do with this knowledge, but I started paying more attention to James and Vanessa's lives again. Not obsessively like before, but strategically. I created a separate Instagram account to follow Vanessa without her knowing. I reconnected with mutual friends who moved in their social circles. I kept my ears open. What I learned painted an interesting picture. Vanessa had transformed herself from the carefree other woman to a desperate would-be mother. Her Instagram became a shrine to other people's babies. She posted articles about fertility treatments, started a mommy lifestyle blog, despite not being a mother. It would have been sad if it wasn't so ironic. The woman who had stolen my future was now watching her own desired future slip away. James, meanwhile, seemed increasingly absent from her photos. When he did appear, he looked tired, distracted. The golden boy was tarnishing. I focused on my own life, too. I wasn't just gathering intelligence, I was building myself up. I finished my master's degree, got promoted to department head at Westlake, started dating a kind, thoughtful man named Elliot, who was a pediatric surgeon. The contrast between him and James was stark. Elliot actually listened when I spoke, supported my career, treated me as an equal. "You seem different lately," my sister Leah remarked over dinner one night. "More, I don't know. Confident?" I smiled. "I feel different. Like I've finally moved beyond everything with James." "Good," she said, raising her glass. "To leaving the past behind." I clinked my glass against hers, not mentioning that I wasn't exactly leaving the past behind. I was preparing to confront it on my own terms. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. I received an invitation to the Westlake Academy fundraising gala, a major event in Boston's educational community. As department head, I was expected to attend. What I didn't expect was to see James and Vanessa's names on the donor list. Why would they be involved with Westlake? I asked my colleague Patricia, trying to keep my voice casual. Oh, haven't you heard? Vanessa's family foundation just pledged $1 million to schools across Boston. They're trying to improve their public image after that financial scandal. Westlake is one of the recipients. My heart raced. After 5 years of carefully avoiding any event where they might be present, we were about to be thrown together. I considered backing out, claiming illness, but then I thought, no, this is my territory, my school, my achievement. I wouldn't hide. I spent weeks preparing for that night, not just emotionally, but in every way. I started a new skincare regimen, stepped up my workout routine, bought a dress that cost more than a month's rent, a midnight blue gown that made me look like I'd stepped off a movie screen. I wanted to look successful, confident, completely over James Mitchell. The night of the gala, Elliot couldn't attend. He had an emergency surgery. Part of me was relieved. I wanted to face them alone. You look incredible, Patricia whispered as I entered the hotel ballroom. Like a completely different person from the Carrie who started at Westlake 5 years ago. She was right. I was different. The woman who had sobbed on her bathroom floor was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who had rebuilt herself piece by piece. I spotted them immediately. James in a tuxedo, showing signs of a thickening waistline his expensive tailoring couldn't quite hide. And Vanessa, still beautiful but thinner than in her photos, with a brittle quality to her smile. They were surrounded by the superintendent and board members, clearly playing the part of generous benefactors. I circulated the room, deliberately avoiding their corner. Let them see me first. Let them come to me. It worked. I was chatting with a major donor when I felt a presence at my elbow. I turned to find James standing there, his expression a mixture of surprise and something else. Regret, perhaps? Carrie, he said, his voice oddly formal. Wow, you look amazing. James, I replied coolly. Thank you. It's been a while. 5 years, he said, as if I wouldn't know the exact time frame of our separation. I didn't know you worked at Westlake. I'm the English department head, I said, unable to keep a note of pride from my voice. Going on 2 years now. He nodded, clearly uncomfortable. That's great. Really great. And you? Still at Clark Investments? His smile faltered slightly. Actually, I started my own consulting firm last year. More independence. Translation. He'd either been fired or forced out of his father-in-law's company. Interesting. How nice for you, I said with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. We stood in awkward silence until he finally said, Vanessa's here too. She'd probably want to say hello. I doubted that very much, but I merely nodded. Of course. He led me over to where Vanessa stood with a group of board members. Her eyes widened when she saw me, her perfect composure slipping for just a moment before she recovered. Carrie, she said, extending a hand as if we were business acquaintances. What a surprise. Vanessa, I replied, shaking her hand firmly. I work here. The surprise is mine. The tension between us was palpable. The board members, sensing the awkwardness, made excuses and drifted away, leaving the three of us in a triangle of discomfort. You're looking well, Vanessa said, her eyes scanning me for any sign of weakness or aging. Thank you. So are you, I lied smoothly. Up close, I could see the toll stress had taken on her. Fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there in her Instagram photos. A nervous twitch in her smile. James was just telling me about his new consulting firm, I continued. And I understand your family foundation is making generous donations to education. She nodded, seemingly relieved to discuss neutral topics. Yes, we believe strongly in giving back. How admirable, I said. Especially after everything that happened with your father's firm. Her smile froze. James shifted uncomfortably beside her. It's been a challenging time, she admitted stiffly. I understand completely, I said, my voice dripping with false sympathy. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? One day everything seems perfect, and the next? I let the sentence hang. The color drained from her face. She knew I was referring to more than just her father's business troubles. "If you'll excuse me," I said, "I should continue making the rounds. Enjoy the gala." As I walked away, I could feel their eyes on my back. For the first time in years, I had the upper hand. And I wasn't done yet. I spent the next hour mingling confidently with donors and colleagues, acutely aware of James and Vanessa watching me from across the room. I made sure to laugh a little too loudly, to touch people's arms when I spoke to them, to project an aura of complete happiness. Let them wonder. Let them see what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away. The dinner portion of the evening arrived, and by some cruel twist of fate, or perhaps deliberate planning by an unknowing event coordinator, I found myself seated at the same table as James and Vanessa, just far enough away that we weren't forced to speak directly, but close enough that every reaction, every word was visible. The superintendent gave a speech thanking the Clark Family Foundation for their generous donation. Vanessa smiled tightly as everyone applauded. James looked like he wished to be anywhere else. When the plates were cleared and people began moving between tables again, I excused myself to the ladies' room. I needed a moment alone to steady my nerves. This evening was more emotionally draining than I'd anticipated. I was touching up my lipstick when the bathroom door swung open and Vanessa walked in. Our eyes met in the mirror. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "You planned this, didn't you?" she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I turned to face her. "Planned what, exactly?" "Being here. Looking like this." She gestured vaguely at my appearance. "You knew we'd be attending." I laughed, genuinely amused by her paranoia. "Vanessa, I've worked at Westlake for 5 years. This gala happens every year. Your donation was announced last month. If anyone planned this encounter, it wasn't me." She seemed unconvinced. "You've changed." "That tends to happen when your husband leaves you for another woman," I replied evenly. "You either fall apart or rebuild. I chose to rebuild." She looked away, focusing intently on washing her hands. "James isn't happy," she said suddenly, as if the words had escaped without permission. I raised an eyebrow. "And you're telling me this because—" "I don't know." She shut off the water with more force than necessary. "Maybe I thought you'd care. I stopped caring about James's happiness the day he chose yours over mine," I said, surprised by my own calmness. "But I'm curious. Why isn't he happy? He got everything he wanted. You, the fancy career, the big house." She grabbed a paper towel, drying her hands with methodical precision. "Things change. People change." "Yes," I agreed. "They do." We stood in uncomfortable silence until I decided to take a risk. "How are the fertility treatments going?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. "How did you—" "We have the same doctor," I said simply. "Dr. Levine mentioned you've been trying." Vanessa's face crumpled momentarily before she regained control. "That's a violation of privacy." "Probably," I conceded. But she remembered how badly I wanted children with James. I think she felt I deserved to know. "Is that why you're here?" Vanessa demanded, anger replacing her shock. "To gloat about my problems? To tell everyone that the woman who stole your husband can't give him a baby?" I studied her, seeing for the first time the frightened woman beneath the perfect exterior. "No," I said honestly. "I'm not here to humiliate you, Vanessa. I'm here because this is my school, my career, and my life. The life I built after you and James destroyed my old one." She flinched at the directness of my words. "Besides," I continued, "I don't need to tell anyone about your fertility issues. You've practically announced them yourself with all those desperate Instagram posts about future mommies and IVF clinics." "You've been stalking my social media?" she accused. I shrugged. "Let's just say I've been keeping informed." Vanessa seemed to deflate, leaning against the counter. "What do you want from me, Carrie? An apology? Revenge? What?" I considered her question carefully. What did I want? For years, I'd fantasized about confronting her, making her suffer as I had suffered. But standing here now, looking at her, this woman who had once seemed so threatening, so superior, I felt something unexpected. Pity. "I don't want anything from you," I said finally. "I just want you to know that you didn't break me. You thought you were trading up when you took James, getting the better life, the better man. How's that working out for you? She didn't answer, but her silence was response enough. For what it's worth, I added, moving toward the door. I hope you get your baby. I really do. No one deserves to have their dreams taken away from them. I should know. I left her standing there, staring after me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Back in the ballroom, I immediately spotted James at the bar, nursing what looked like a double scotch. He straightened when he saw me approaching. "Carrie," he said, his speech slightly slurred. "Having fun?" "Actually, yes," I replied, "though I just had an interesting conversation with your wife in the ladies' room." He grimaced. "What did she say?" "Not much, just that you're unhappy." James sighed heavily, staring into his drink. "She shouldn't have said that." "No, she shouldn't have. But then, you both have a history of doing things you shouldn't." He looked up sharply, then nodded in reluctant acknowledgement. "I deserve that. You deserve a lot of things, James. But mostly, you deserve the life you chose." He was quiet for a long moment. "I made a mistake, Carrie." "Which one? Cheating on me? Leaving me? Or marrying her?" "All of it," he said quietly. I don't know what I thought. That life would be easier with her? That her father's connections would make my career? That I deserved more than what we had? I felt a strange calm wash over me. After years of wondering what had gone through his mind, of questioning what I could have done differently, here was James finally admitting his own culpability. "Do you know what I realized, James? Our marriage wasn't perfect. Maybe it was even failing before Vanessa came along. But instead of working on it or leaving honestly, you chose the coward's way out." He didn't deny it. "And now," I continued, "you're trapped in a marriage that's crumbling, with in-laws who've lost respect for you, and a wife who's desperate for the one thing you're apparently unable to give her." His face paled. "She told you about the fertility issues?" "She didn't have to. Like I told her, we have the same doctor." James drained his glass, signaling the bartender for another. "It's destroying her. Destroying us. Her father blames me. Says there must be something wrong with my, but we've both been tested. It's unexplained infertility, they call it." I felt a pang of sympathy despite myself. "I'm sorry. I know how much you wanted children." He looked at me with bleary eyes. "With you, Carrie. I wanted them with you." The words hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, I glimpsed an alternate reality. The life we might have had. The family we might have built. But that reality had vanished the moment he'd betrayed me. "It's too late for that," I said softly. "Much too late." He nodded miserably. "I know. I wanted you to know that I regret it. Every day." I studied him. This man I'd once loved enough to marry, to plan a future with. He looked older, diminished somehow. The charm that had once captivated me was gone, replaced by a desperate sadness. "Regret is a useless emotion, James," I said finally. "We can't change the past. We can only move forward." As if on cue, the superintendent approached us, beaming. "Carrie, there you are. I wanted to introduce you to Dr. Reynolds from Boston University. He's very interested in our AP English program." I smiled, grateful for the interruption. "I'd love to meet him." James started to say something, but I turned away, walking with the superintendent toward my future, leaving James and all he represented firmly in my past. That night at the gala marked a turning point for me. Confronting James and Vanessa closed a chapter I hadn't fully realized was still open. I'd thought I'd moved on, but facing them, seeing the reality of their lives versus the perfect image I'd constructed in my mind, allowed me to truly let go. 3 months later, Elliot proposed. We were having dinner at home. Nothing fancy, just takeout after a long week, when he suddenly put down his fork and pulled out a ring box. "I was going to plan something elaborate," he said, "but then I realized, this is us. Real life. And I want all of it with you, Carrie. The ordinary days and the extraordinary ones." I said yes through tears. The ring was simple, elegant. Nothing flashy or ostentatious. Perfect for us. Perfect for the life we were building together. We married in a small ceremony the following spring. Just close friends and family in my sister's backyard. No destination wedding, no extravagant displays. Just love. Honest and uncomplicated. I ran into Vanessa once more before we left Boston. Elliot had accepted a position at Children's Hospital in Chicago, and I'd secured a teaching job at a prestigious prep school there. We were packing up my apartment when I decided to make one last coffee run to my favorite local spot. She was sitting alone by the window, staring at her laptop screen. She looked different, her hair shorter, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. She noticed me before I could retreat. "Carrie," she called, waving hesitantly. I considered pretending I hadn't seen her, but something compelled me to approach her table. "Vanessa," I said with a nod. "How are you?" "Okay, I think." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Do you have a minute?" I glanced at my watch. "A quick one." She closed her laptop. "I heard you're getting married. Moving to Chicago." News traveled fast in our overlapping social circles. "Yes, next month. I'm happy for you," she said, and surprisingly, she seemed sincere. "You deserve it." I raised an eyebrow. "Thank you." She took a deep breath. "James and I are divorcing." I nodded, unsurprised. After the gala, I'd heard rumors through mutual friends. "I'm sorry it didn't work out." "Are you?" she asked, not accusingly but with genuine curiosity. I considered the question. "I think I am. Not because I wish you happiness, particularly, but because divorce is painful for anyone. I wouldn't wish that pain on most people." She gave a small, sad smile. "You're a better person than I am." "Probably," I agreed, which made her laugh unexpectedly. "I deserved that," she acknowledged. "I was awful to you. Taking James, flaunting our relationship. I thought I was winning something valuable." I sipped my coffee, watching her over the rim of my cup. "And now? Now I realize I was competing for a prize that wasn't worth having." She twisted a paper napkin between her fingers. "He cheated on me too, you know, with his assistant. History repeating itself." I wasn't shocked. Some people never change. "Once a cheater," I murmured. "My father cut him off completely after that. The foundation too. That's why we haven't been at any of the school events lately." That explained why I hadn't seen them at the last 2 Westlake functions. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Start over," she said simply. "Move back to New York, where my mom lives. Try to figure out who I am without my father's money or a husband or the identity I've built around all that." For the first time, I saw Vanessa clearly, not as the villain in my story or the woman who'd stolen my husband, but as someone flawed and human, struggling to find her way just like everyone else. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said, standing to leave. She looked up at me. "Can I ask you something? That night at the gala, when you found out about our fertility problems, you could have told everyone, used it against me. Why didn't you?" I thought about it. Because it wouldn't have fixed anything. It wouldn't have healed me or helped me move forward. Revenge might feel good momentarily, but it doesn't build a life. She nodded slowly. "You really have changed." "We all have," I replied. "That's what time does." As I walked back to my apartment, coffee in hand, I felt lighter somehow. The anger I'd carried for so long, the bitterness I'd nursed even while telling myself I'd moved on, was finally, truly gone. Life in Chicago with Elliot has been everything my life with James wasn't. Honest, equal, secure. We've been married 3 years now, and I'm 5 months pregnant with twins. 2 little girls who will grow up knowing their worth, who will never settle for less than they deserve. Sometimes I wonder about Vanessa and James. I heard through the grapevine that she's working for a non-profit in New York, something about supporting women in business. James apparently moved to California, trying to rebuild his career far from the wreckage of his past. I wish them both peace, honestly. Not because they deserve it, but because I've learned that holding on to resentment only hurts the person doing the holding. The universe has a way of balancing accounts without our help. James lost 2 good women because of his own selfishness. Vanessa lost the life she thought she'd secured by taking what wasn't hers. And I lost a life that wasn't meant for me, and found one that was. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't something you do to others. It's what you do for yourself. Building a life so full and rich that the past becomes nothing more than a distant memory, a lesson learned, a road not taken. In the end, that's the justice.